Three tight ends set.
Imagine a quarterback keeper. There we go.
Richardson takes off. He's in. Touchdown.
When most people talk about the AFC South, they want to start with the Houston Texans. And for good reason. They have CJ Stroud, who just put up one of the best rookie quarterback seasons ever. They just added Stephon Diggs to an already good receiving core. And they have the best defensive coach in the NFL, possibly, with a lot of good young defensive talent. But I think there's another team in the AFC South that we should be paying attention to, and it's the Indianapolis Colts. There's a whole litany of reasons why. I won't even talk about their defense right now. I want to talk about their offense, and that starts with the quarterback. One of the reasons I was so high on Anthony Richardson coming out of the draft last year was his sack avoidance and his general feel for the pocket. Richardson posted an elite pressure to sack rate of 9.2% his final year at Florida, and that ability wasn't only generated by his freakish athleticism, it was his awareness of the defenders around him and his instincts to move forward into open space that helped him out. And while pressure to sack numbers are typically sticky from quarterback prospects, Richardson's did not carry over last year as he posted a 22.6 pressure to sack rate. However, we're working with a pretty small sample size, and I'm showing you a couple plays here where he could have just thrown the ball out of bounds rather than taking a sack. And my point is, on tape, his navigation of the pocket was still very good in the few games he played. He's just so twitchy for a guy who's 6'4", 244, and it's just not easy for anyone to make Aaron Donald miss like this. Richardson's awareness and ability to maneuver the pocket is closely tied to his processing and his overall understanding of the game, which I think is a very underrated part of his skill set. This is a smart QB despite what many people have said about him for reasons not super hard to figure out, and while he could stand to speed up that process just a little bit, the decisions on where to go with the ball are almost always sound. Now, one of my favorite examples of Richardson's processing is this play. This is dagger. It's a clear out with a dig or what's called a dagger underneath it. Now, that clear out is usually a vertical or a post, but on this play, it's a corner. And that is an alert. It's not a part of the progression. But when Richardson looks over there, he sees the outside corner pinning down on it, and he sees a linebacker in the dig window, so he uncorks this ball to Josh Downs anyways. His mental chops also help him against the blitz. Here the Jags have 3 potential rushers at the second level to the left side, so the Colts are in a 4-man slide that way called lucky. But when the ball is snapped, the edge rusher and off-ball linebacker both drop off, and they send a safety down to blitz away from the slide, leaving him completely unblocked. But Anthony Richardson assesses the situation, keeps his cool, and finds his running back in the flat immediately for a chunk gain. Stuff like this is just not very common for a guy who's barely 21 starting in the league for the first time ever. But he's not flawless. The main issue with Anthony Richardson is and always has been his accuracy. Don't get me wrong, there are plenty of throws with perfect ball placement on his tape, but there are also quite a few where he misses high. And I don't think this is a mechanical issue. I think his footwork is much improved from college. He's not an overstrider. He doesn't have a bad arm path. I think his mechanics are very clean and effective. I honestly think Richardson's arm is just too strong for his own good sometimes, and it can really hurt him when he has to use touch or layer passes. But speaking of that strong arm, I don't think it's controversial to say that Anthony Richardson has a top 5 arm in the NFL in terms of raw power. Seam balls like this to Josh Downs are a delight to watch. This dude's got a howitzer, or a ham cannon. I still don't quite know what that one scout was talking about last year. But anyways, the arm talent allows him to get throws off and complete them in suffocating pockets like this one to Alec Pierce, and we get to see that arm on display because of the offense Richardson finds himself in. So I'll use this to segue into a conversation about Shane Steichen, whose offense is predicated on 3 things: verticality, zone runs, and quarterback runs. We saw this work with rookie Justin Herbert when he utilized his big arm to execute deep concepts that most quarterbacks couldn't even dream of attempting. This also manifested itself with Jalen Hurts, who was an outstanding go-ball thrower and obviously a massive part of the run game. Now Anthony Richardson gets to be the beneficiary of all these things. It's a hand-in-glove fit. The best athlete we've ever seen at the quarterback position in an offense that will use both his arm and his legs better than anyone else. Steichen will have him running these typical aggressive concepts like 989, which is 2 nines or goes, and an 8 or a post, which can be flattened into a field post or stretched into a skinny depending on the defense. The Rams are manning up here, so on this play it'll flatten into a field post and Richardson will create to find it on the run for a touchdown. This isn't really the point of the clip I'm showing you here, but another feature of the Steichen offense is that it really uses tight ends well. And before I move on to the next clip, I'll show you another angle because it really highlights Anthony Richardson's ability to avoid pressure, and of course it highlights his arm strength on the run. But anyways, I'll move on to the next clip, which is the most vertical concept you can come up with, 4 verticals. And this is perfect for a guy like Anthony Richardson, who can really live in these seams because this is the weak spot of the defense on most of these plays. Now, if you know anything about this play, you know that it's really good against cover 3, but because of the way teams run cover 2 nowadays, it's really good against any zone defense because every zone defense does have a weak spot in those seam areas. So it's a big advantage to have a guy like Anthony Richardson who has the arm talent and the quick release to attack those soft spots. But none of this would be possible without the offensive line. And the improvement of the Colts offensive line under Shane Steichen is a conundrum that I could not figure out for a while. In fact, I still don't know exactly how it happened, but I'll give my best guess. I'm going to put some numbers up on the screen. I'm not going to read them off, but I will add some context that they gave up the 3rd most sacks in the NFL at 41 in 2022, and then gave up the 6th least amount of sacks in the NFL at 19 in 2023. So how did this happen? One of the reasons is the depths of the quarterback drops. The majority of QB drops are going to be considered 5 or 7 step drops, but these depths put a ton of stress on your tackles. So it should not come as a surprise that the Colts utilized these drops more in 2022 than they did in 2023, going from 87.4% down to 81.8%. Another factor is just the creativity and lack of predictability of the offense. The use of play action jumped from 28th at 18.8% to 8th at 26.8%. What this does is it allows the offense an extra split second on pass plays since the defense has to respect the run, and they can't just pin their ears back and get after it. Speaking of the run game, the Colts rushing attack rebounded in a significant way in 2023, improving their rush EPA per play from negative 0.181 to negative 0.108. Yes, rush EPA is usually in the negatives. This improvement is much easier to explain than the improvement in the pass blocking area. They just leaned into inside zone more because, well, they're good at it. They averaged 4.7 yards per carry on it in 2022 and 4.8 yards per carry in 2023. They just increased the usage from 34.9% to 42.5% over that time, and they used much less man runs, as PFF calls them. Usually this means any run where the offensive lineman has a man assigned for them to block, but I think PFF is just charting duo as man. Still not sure. Regardless, the emphasis on inside zone as their run game identity has been the point of improvement for the Colts run game. Additionally, the creativity that helps them in pass protection stems from their run game. Steichen will layer plays off one another using the same formations and motions to run different plays. Early in the season against the Rams, he employed this goal line package with a tight end and running back off the ball to his left. And you can see it on this play. They motion the back out to the right, and then they pull the left guard and have the tight end lead block for Anthony Richardson to run power for a touchdown. They followed that up later by using the same formation, same motion, and same pulling guard, only this time Richardson's going to pull back and find a wide open Kylan Granson because the box defenders were occupied with the threat of Richardson's legs. Now all of this is great, but there's been one thing missing from this offense, and with all due respect to Alec Pierce, they could still use a dynamic outside receiver who's a true downfield separator. Enter Adonai Mitchell. The Colts took Mitchell with the 52nd pick in the draft, a far fall from where many, including myself, thought he would end up. I had him as the wide receiver 4 in this class, but it appears factors other than his tape made him fall down the board on draft weekend. He also has a questionable production profile as he only put up 1.73 yards per route run his last year at Texas, and there are some reasons for this. Some are his fault and some are not his fault. The first thing to point out is that it's not hard to tell who plays are designed for in Texas's offense. The receiver who's not a part of the concept will usually not even bother to run a route, which is a concern about Mitchell, but considering Xavier Worthy did the same thing, I think it can be coached out of him, but that's just one of the things that's hurting his yards per route run. The other is, unfortunately, his quarterback. Mitchell's a deep separator with great body control and hands. It just so happens that he had maybe the worst deep ball thrower in college football last year. Some of these misses are just comical, and it obviously hurt his production. It also hurt our ability to see his contested catching, which I think is above average due to his good body control and hands, as I mentioned, and we got a little taste of that here on this touchdown grab against Washington. What does show up consistently on his film is his ability to separate at a high level. Obviously, you can see him beat guys on these double moves, but he's also just a much more nuanced route runner than given credit for. On this play, he's going to run a curl route, but instead of just getting to his assigned depth and turning around, he sets up this corner with an outside fake to get him turned upfield before forcing him to get depth by selling the post and then stopping on a dime to create space and make this catch for a chunk gain. The point I'm trying to get across here is simple. A.D. Mitchell's skill set as a prototypical downfield X receiver is going to be a huge addition to what this Colts offense wants to do. So I hope you all enjoyed the film review. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think of the Colts in the comment section. I try to be active in responding to you all because I just really enjoyed the discussion. I'm obviously very high on the Colts, and I'm a fan of some of their defensive picks in recent years as well, such as Juju Brents or Laiatu Latu, who I didn't mention today. And as far as the outlook for their season goes, I think the Texans are obviously poised to take a step, but if you're talking about the AFC South, I think the next team to bet on there would be the Colts. I think this can easily be a 10-win playoff team for years to come if this young core develops the way I expect it to. But other than that, just let me know what you guys think, and let me know what you want to see next. I'll see y'all next time.